guys, welcome to episode 1 of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. If you're wondering what we're doing here, this is a new format we're doing for our film reviews from now on. Today we're actually going to review PK, and we're basically going to talk about the things we liked, the things we were kind of the good, the bad, which were things that I'd say on a technical level maybe we weren't really a fan of, and then the ugly is just stuff that we couldn't.
Just sucked. You can't.
Yeah,
you
just
can't,
couldn't look past it at all, no
it.
matter what. No justifying it. We watched PK. It's a 2014 film starring Aamir Khan, and I can't remember the name, but the girl from Sultan.
Anushka Sharma.
Anushka Sharma, who, funny enough, with her hair like that, looked a lot like my mother-in-law. I was like, wow, she looks like almost identical to my mother-in-law, which is, I'm not gonna say it's a good thing or a bad thing. Haircut definitely made her look a little older than she is, and she's 30 or she's just about to turn 30 this year. So,
and it's also directed by Rajkumar Hirani, who did my personal favorite, Three Idiots.
Yeah.
So I was excited to watch this one.
And we saw Virus.
Yes.
Was also in Three
Yes,
Idiots,
we did.
So
he was like the head of a news.
Yeah,
studio.
he was Jagu's boss.
Yeah.
Who had issues with religion himself. Daniel actually came up with this format, so why don't you get started, Daniel? Let's talk about what you liked, the good.
Right off the bat, the themes that it dealt with, I enjoyed thoroughly. No doubt about it. The subject matter was the star of the show. I mean, everyone would say it's Aamir Khan, but he's just the train that everyone boards to get us through.
Right.
But the movie's about religion, and not just any particular religion, but kind of all religion, with the exception of Judaism. I didn't hear Judaism get mentioned once throughout the entire.
Well, we'll have to look up, but I don't know how large a population.
That's true, but I'm just saying though. Overall, it's about religion and the hypocrisies, I guess, would be a good word of religion, and kind of how humans lead people astray, and it's kind of just this weird, not a weird, but this commentary on that.
Going back just real quick on Judaism, I'm pulling a Brian Callen here, but the reason why there's no Judaism in India is because Jews don't convert. You're either born a Jew or you'll never be a Jew.
That's true.
So they don't go out trying to they're not trying to recruit people.
They're not going to villages to preach.
Yeah, and try to get you on their team.
Because you're born chosen.
Exactly.
Basically.
You're one of the chosen people, and if you weren't born that way,
well,
then you're a Gentile and you're done.
Yeah. So I guess that makes sense. But yeah, so for me, like right off the bat, that was great. The humor, when it landed. Like there was some hilarious bits. I mean, the whole scene with he tries to hold that girl's hand on the bus. Yeah. She's wearing white, and he doesn't know any better. And then she's like,
"How are you hitting on a widow?"
Yeah, why are you hitting? And then he goes and sees like some Christians getting married, and they're in a wedding dress, and he goes and says, "I'm sorry" to them, and they're like, "What do you mean I'm getting married?" Because he's like, "I'm sorry you lost your husband."
And then the lady in the hijab.
Yeah, she's like, she said, "What are you talking about? Women who mourned weren't black." And then it cuts right to the three women. There was a lot of moments like that where it was hitting the head on the nail like perfectly. It was just, this is absurd. This is stupid that we have to wear these certain types. Because as a growing up Catholic,
you have to wear a uniform. Basically.
I always hated. Oh, you're going to a funeral. You have to wear black. You have to wear dark colors. You can't wear bright things. You can't wear any. And I've never. I got it, quote unquote, because that's the tradition. That's kind of like but I never understood it genuinely because the person's dead. Who cares? Not in a negative way, but he or she doesn't.
I mean,
I'm not saying you can't. You're going to dress like Hawaiian shirts, tie dye or something,
right?
But,
unless they want you to.
Some people want to celebrate life, and I respect that. But I think it's more. What I mean is, me wearing black doesn't somehow elevate people to another level. As a matter of fact, I feel like it makes the whole experience depressing, like even more so, because it's like everybody knows we're mourning. I don't know, but that's just my opinion. But the point is, though, it highlights on these little nuances that don't really make sense in today's time, in my opinion, anymore. And I feel like that was a definite solid. I really appreciated the fact that the film didn't appear to hold any punches back. I mean, I don't know if you agree with that, but would you say that?
No, I think it was a pretty general criticism. I mean, I know before when we did the reaction, a lot of people commented that they felt like it was like an attack on Hinduism, and I could see that because a lot of it focused on Jagu and her relationship and her family's relationship with the holiness, the holy man.
They had to pick one religion to
Right.
streamline the story.
Right.
I feel like that was
And
the
if that's
anchor.
and if that's the largest religion in the country,
It makes sense.
It would make sense to
It
do
would be
that.
like making a movie about Christianity in America.
Exactly,
You know,
which-
there's no religion in America,
Kevin
but
Smith did. It's called Dogma. So I really liked the emotion in it. There was definitely parts where I was touched. Like I got a little misty eyed, you know. And they were able. And I so far it's only been Amir Khan films that have been able to do this, but you know, they've been able to like really play with your emotions and really like get you to like feel for
laugh,
for
and
the
then all of a
characters,
sudden,
or get like sad or like
and then you just
empathize for the character on screen. I thought that was really strong at a lot of points. Like the director did a real great job with it. I mean, you know, Three Idiots, he did a lot of that as well.
I mean, he also edited the movie, so that was another thing. You know,
Okay.
I feel like there was a lot going on in this movie, so you know that's something that the fact that you're able to get through this much subject matter in 2.5 hours, for the most part, was pretty effective.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was edited in a way that, you know, and we'll, like you said, we'll get to the gripes that I've had with some of the
Right.
character development and the story, but everything fit together.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I didn't like some of the things, and we'll get to that
Yeah.
in the beginning, but it all tied up at the end. Everything came together. Everything kind of was neat by the end.
Yeah,
And I liked the ending. I liked the fact that they didn't end up together. PK and Anushka Sharma. I didn't, you know, that.
No.
Like they didn't need to
Yeah,
be together.
I
liked
definitely
he
like
just
that
left.
it didn't go like one. That's something I actually liked about the whole film. Like, there's a lot of things that felt like they were going down that cliche road, and they didn't. And all of a sudden, it veered. Even stuff that, you know, we'll talk about that we consider bad, maybe, was like, in hindsight, now as a whole thing, like
As a whole, that's the key.
as a whole, it makes sense, and it was like it's a good move in the long
That's
run.
what I was
at
trying
the
to
time.
say, yeah.
And so there's a lot of stuff like that. Like, it didn't. I thought, okay, he's gonna fall in love, he's gonna stay on Earth, and no, it didn't work out. That curveball,
Yep.
you know, and it was good because it was set up. It was good. It was not good, but it was set up all the way
At
in
the
the
very
very
beginning.
beginning of the film to the point where you almost forgot about it, and it was brought back.
Plant and
then,
payoff, man. They're important.
I mean, he's good at this. He's good at that. Obviously, he did a lot in Three Idiots, and he did it again in this one. Little things as well. Little things that
Super little
yeah.
things, and just things like that. There's a scene with the little gods.
Right.
When he wants to buy what's the difference between the $15 one and then the $20 one or
Right.
whatever currency, rupees, is that the
Yeah.
15 rupee one? Nothing, they're all the same, but one's big. You know, again, he's highlighting these little things that
Yeah.
are and what's interesting is, you know, Muslims don't have idolatry. Like, that's a part of their religion. Like, the whole, like, these little trinkets, that's just not in their thing.
Right.
And I'm not speaking for all of them or as if I'm a spokesperson, but I'm just saying it's interesting to look at that because I grew up Catholic and we have saints, you know, St. Patrick's Day.
I mean, that's
I'm
actually
wearing my green shirt.
That's a big part of, well, the Orthodox Church exists because of idolatry, and the Catholic Church, that was part of the reason why they broke off.
Right.
And Protestants as well, that's another reason why they broke off, was because there's so much idolatry in the Catholic Church, which if you read the New Testament, like, that's a big criticism in there as well. Like, and the Jewish, actually the Bible in general, they always talk about like not worshiping idols. And then you go to the Catholic Church, and it's basically all the Roman idols with new names, you know.
Kind of, but point is though, that was a funny scene.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, but it was also full of commentary. Like when he goes and he pays and he gets those coconut things and he gives the person the tray, and then he's like, "Hey, where's my prayer?" Like,
Right.
These are real questions that, in a weird way, can only be asked by an alien
Yeah.
and have it be acceptable. It's almost like he was a cartoon character.
He was, absolutely.
Because only in the cartoons can you really question things like this.
He was a caricature.
I mean,
really.
but
in a good way.
yeah,
In a
and
good way.
he was completely naive, and I think the concept of
He was
an
a
alien,
child. I mean, kids ask these same questions. And then you
Exactly.
tell them to shut up and tell them to just believe, and then they grow up.
they grow up resentful, or they don't care.
A lot
or
of it's
they-
fear. A
or
lot of
they-
it. A lot of it's fear.
which is what they also talk
Yeah.
about in the movie.
Yeah,
that
it just
they-
scare you into believing, and then you.
which
yeah.
is true,
Yeah.
because I like I said, for me, religion, that was definitely. I mean, I wasn't scared of it. It was just how I was raised with
Right.
schooling, because we had to take all these classes because I went to private school, so that was a part of my upbringing. But you never wanted to mess up. You never wanted to sin. You never wanted to break any of the commandments or whatever. You know, you can't break some of the commandments.
Well,
at
it's the
6 years
Santa.
old, but it's just
a Santa allegory, you know. Like,
right. Exactly.
if you don't behave,
then you're not gonna get some coal, and no one wants coal
in your stocking.
All those coal based barbecues are great. So
I mean, I like the performances a lot too. I thought Anushka Sharma was great. There wasn't any point she did anything that I cringed at. Like,
true.
You know,
I will agree with that.
She was in the pocket. Aamir Khan did just kind of goofy. He was definitely reminiscent of Three Idiots. Very like
Rancho.
It was like Rancho, but like cranked up to the next level. Let's get to the bad. I'll start with the bad because I know you're probably gonna hammer it a little harder than me. There was definitely some stuff that was a little too like on the nose, coincidental. Oh, this just all works out, you know. Like I liked things about the last scene or not the last scene, but the second to last scene where she like reunites with
Pakistani boyfriend
Sarfaraz on the phone and everything, and like that whole like
it was cute.
That got to me. I was like, oh my god, that was heavy.
But it was
felt
completely
good.
Forced.
But it was definitely forced. Like the way, let's just call like 75 people. Like that was a little
because. This would have been the most interesting
TV
show.
That was a little lazy writing right there.
This would have been the most interesting TV show to watch ever. Because I don't know how they would have been able to cover all this live.
Yeah. Who else can you call?
Yeah.
Let's go here.
The director literally comes down from his booth to give her the phone.
Yeah. that was a little too much. The bomb sequence at the train station was like, it was such a tonal change from the way the entire film was. It was so like, we didn't see anything like that. There was no sort of violence. And all of a sudden, you had a fundamentalist Muslim attack at a train station for no reason. Like, they didn't know who was on this train. You know, they just...
Which I can see where there might be a point there, because, you know, people just live their lives and then all of a sudden they get involved in shit like that.
There's definitely a point, but it just wasn't set up.
Yeah, no.
And it didn't fit the rest of the movie tonally. So it was a little like, it was jarring. And then it fit, you know. It started to fit a little more like once he went and saw the dead bodies.
In retrospect.
Yeah, exactly. As a whole, it kind of fit. But at that moment,
it was shocking in a bad way.
Yeah, it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best choice for me
because there was no setup. There was no. We
had very little interaction with Muslims in the movie. Like when he's trying to find what religion to follow, you know, he gets chased out of town real quick, but that's about it.
Because when he brings the wine
into
town,
which
is hilarious.
Wine, which is, I mean, that's a learning thing too. Like, is that I want to know, like, if you walk in with alcohol into the Muslim side of town, are you going to run into stuff like that? Is that how extreme it is in India or in other countries in general?
Well, because did he go to Pakistan?
He didn't even go into the temple. No, it was just in that. He was just in the neighborhood of town where all the Muslims lived.
Oh, because I thought I saw Pakistani flags flying where he was at. It might have like been a mental thing, but I thought I saw it. But I don't know. But the point is, it was interesting. But for as many things as this movie sets up, the fact that it didn't even suggest the bombing portion of it, to me just felt, because it did feel random.
Like one little scene where we see these, like, because we don't even see who these terrorists are.
These people work for the news. They could have been a news bulletin, another attack today.
Exactly.
Whatever.
So just like a little setup like that. And it's kind of disappointing because he's been really good at those little tiny setups that get paid off later.
It was random, but not in a good way.
Yeah, exactly.
It was very like, because then they brought back the other guy too, which is the connecting tissue to bring him to the train station.
I mean, that was a way to get rid of him, but that was also kind of, we hadn't seen that guy since the beginning of the movie.
Right, that's what I'm saying. It was a false emotion grabber.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't really need to be there. It kind of worked, but only after the fact.
And even then, that felt a little simple. Like, oh, okay, they just randomly found the guy who's spouting off because he had too much to drink, and then his buddy who hit him with the car,
which randomly
just puts it all together. Oh, okay, well, I'm taking this guy to you.
After being super creepy, and trying to, which is, I mean, I don't know. For me, the bad relates to the first 45 minutes. I feel like the first 45 minutes was almost all bad.
Really?
I liked how it opened. I love the space bit, and then like he comes in naked, and there's that whole chase scene.
Right.
But then you cut to Belgium with the forced love story, which is, we kind of touched upon on the good. You know, it kind of wrapped itself up neatly by the end. But
if we had more of a connection to that issue, to that war, that tension between those two countries,
But see, I'm not even talking about that. They could have both been Indian. I don't care. I understand that's the point, but the idea is they went and hung out, right? That the whole idea is
well, you didn't like
they're going to the
you didn't like the
Bakchan
passage
thing.
of time.
There was no passage of time.
Well, you don't know that.
I mean, to me, there wasn't. I mean,
No.
there
We have
probably
no
was
idea
because
how
they
long-
changed.
yeah.
They changed clothes, all this
We have
stuff.
no idea how many days passed, but you know, it's a romance.
They tried to cram a love story before they broke into what the story of PK is.
And it was kind of weird because the movie is about PK. At least you know he's the star of the show, and he's not featured in that section. And it didn't bother me that much. It was an interesting setup.
It was a huge setup just for the very last scene.
But I think that was important. It was an important part as a whole. Yeah, like you said. But I don't know that sequence didn't bother me. That much.
It was again. It was.
I actually thought it was. I found it to be kind of interesting because I learned like it was a learning moment for me where like this is obviously real. They're putting this in the movie. Like you can't just like if an Indian and a Pakistani run into each other somewhere, like it's going to be really really difficult for them to
go past that.
Yeah.
To move. No, I'm not saying it was bad. I just didn't like the fact that they went from just meeting outside of a concert and then they ran away because they put the ice cream on the dude, which was cute. I get it. Like that, I can see that. They're younger people. Like that makes sense, right?
Right.
But then they're off having sex, and I mean it's implied, but I mean that's what. And then all of a sudden they're gonna get married.
Hey man.
To me, that was a stretch.
Hey.
Because just
because you've never been in love, Daniel. You don't know how it works.
That might be what it was.
These things happen, man. I know a girl from personal experience. Got engaged to a guy after
Belgium?
a month here in LA.
Oh. I mean, I'm just saying that these are shortcomings. These are the bads.
Yeah.
These aren't the uglies.
I mean, it was minor. I mean, for me, those weren't glaring, but I'll respect that.
I guess my thing is, if you do Three Idiots so well, I expected this to be a little more grounded in moments. I expected a little more time with her to know that she's even, because she wasn't even in the field of television. She kind of just, it's like a line of dialogue that they throw that all of a sudden she kind of gets into this and this is what comes of it. And then she, after one experience, she hates it. She we don't see any of this constant, like, I'm always doing these news stories about things I don't like. It's the very first one we see, she's already mad.
Right.
She's already walking into the office. She's already like demanding things with no setup. That's the thing.
I mean, I think that's a time passes thing too, because we don't know how long. Like that was confusing to me. That was definitely a bad thing. Like how long has it been since she talked to the
Pakistani guy?
Yeah.
So for me again, like
like that's confusing for sure, and I agree with you.
Nothing terrible. None of these are bad things, obviously, because if it was bad enough, I would have hated the whole movie because it corrected itself.
But you did tweet that you didn't like the first hour of the movie,
but ironically enough, about 10 minutes after that is when it started picking up.
Right.
And I didn't tweet again after that.
Stop tweeting.
Well, there was only one tweet. I feel like the story was a little weak, to be honest with you. I thought the commentary was really well, but as a story, in terms of growth,
I think it was an easy. It was a simple story.
I'm not saying that's bad. That's not if I say it's weak, that doesn't mean it's bad. I just don't think it was the strongest story.
It's a bit thin.
Story-wise.
It's definitely a bit thin.
Yeah. Because there's not a lot of beats that really happen. It's kind of just he's exploring and experiencing the world through other people.
Right.
So they're kind of influencing him. He's growing as he learns more knowledge, but not a lot of emotional beats are constantly happening. Because he's so passive.
If I'm gonna have a gripe, I would have liked to see at least 5 minutes back on his planet, just to really, so we can really relate. Because even though we saw him get out of a spaceship, there were times where it still felt like he was crazy, because we never got to.
Yeah, because it felt like he didn't know how to run. Like there's a lot of weird things.
Yeah,
like, why don't they know how to run? Why do they run weird?
Yeah. Like a little more setup on his home planet. Like maybe like you start the movie with like him getting on the spaceship and you kind of like going through. And I thought at some point we were gonna go back there, and I don't know if it was a budgetary thing. Maybe it's because they didn't have the money for the CGI, something like that. But I felt like that would have helped a lot, with his character and the movie in general. So I thought that was a bad thing, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I don't know why they started off with the moon. Like the first image for a movie is very important to me a lot of the times, especially when you're dealing with directors who've proven that they actually give a shit about directing. It starts with the moon. Don't know why.
Right.
Still don't know why. because it doesn't call back to it. But that's the very first thing you see is the moon instead of like it could have just been space going in, like, but they start with the moon specifically. So it didn't make sense. And yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily know if I wanted to see the planet per se, but I definitely understand what you're saying. Like, what's his motivation? Why is he coming here? He's on a research project, but you don't know what for. You don't, because he just gets his thing stolen right away. So it's like, what's the purpose? He never reveals his purpose for being here.
No, and they don't talk about the culture of why they would go to another planet. And research them anyway.
So there's a lot of questions.
Game, obviously, and at the end of the movie, they come back and there's a bunch of them coming off.
And at that point, they're going to study people. I feel like they do drop a line for what they're doing.
Right. Well, they're there to research the behavior patterns because the behavior patterns are off. Yeah. But why?
But you don't know why he came there in the first place.
Exactly.
You know, obviously he landed on this planet for a reason. And it's just, you know, they're not terrible things, they're not terrible gripes, but it's just definitely things that stuck out to me personally. The one thing I will commend, even though I didn't care for the beginning so much, because they went from first meeting to marriage, that's really what bothered me. But I did like that they took the time to explain the whole Pakistan. They didn't really go into details, but they explained that this was a no-no. This was not something that was
right off
customary.
the bat too. It was really immediate.
And that what's helpful is if I didn't, you know, if we haven't been doing all these videos the last few months and we didn't know like how serious it was, if we just watched this with fresh eyes, people would know right off the bat something's not right between these two countries.
Absolutely.
They might not know the exact reasons why, because I feel like not a lot of people know the exact reasons why, because everyone's reasons are truly different, you know. Depending on what side you're on.
Oh, they'll tell us in the comments.
Yeah, but you know what I mean though. So it's like as an outsider, it fills you in.
You knew there was something wrong right off the bat, like something to give her something bad enough to give her pause that would stop her from talking to this guy who she was obviously interested in.
Exactly. But the bad part about that is I feel like in certain moments it relies on those tropes a little bit too much.
Yeah. Let's get to the uglies. What did you think was ugly about the
Aamir Khan's lipstick?
Yeah, I was like wondering, like, is this?
It was really annoying.
I
and
thought
frustrating.
he put it on because like that was.
I'm assuming it's supposed to be a pale, like they're supposed to be pale skinned, and like that was the way to like be different and stand out.
And I thought because it changed color sometimes too, and I thought that maybe it was him, like that was him trying to be a human, like, and
because he saw a woman do it,
and not realizing,
which could have been a setup too.
I feel like it was a different color in different scenes,
depending on the situation. But sometimes it wasn't even, and you could see the cracks.
Yeah,
and
it was definitely distracting. I don't.
To me, that was 100% ugly. You know, I don't see.
And I wasn't sure, like like sometimes it looked like he was wearing makeup. I mean, obviously they all wear makeup, but it looked like he was wearing makeup on purpose, and then other times it didn't. It was inconsistent, and it was never explained. Not a fan of that.
Fucking shirts.
It's funny because you wear shirts like that.
I know.
Like you have tons of shirts like that.
I actually, there's some of them I like. I'm not gonna lie, but it was an eyesore. But you know, it made him stand out. But the thing is, are the only people having sex in cars wearing flamboyant shirts like that?
Yeah.
It's like that's just. You know, it would have been nice to see.
Well, he did pick up a dress, so he might have been grabbing someone's blouse.
That's true.
Some blousier shirt.
I mean, but you know, that would be in the good section, like the whole sex jokes. Those are pretty funny because it was just funny. Yeah. But
he's like, in the bouncy cars, you get money and clothes.
Yeah, exactly, which is ironic.
And like, let's know too. Is that how? Instead of getting a hotel, people are just parking in random spots and
just smashing in
the
cars.
back seat. Yeah,
because it was a lot. I mean, there was
going on,
one shot where there was a whole like 2 rows, and they were all. I mean, obviously it was a joke, but I mean,
right.
That to me, that's commentary.
Is this a thing in Delhi? Is it in Delhi?
That's true.
Do they get down like that? Like,
maybe
that's just
a
thing.
Maybe I need to take a trip to Delhi.
They call it the Delhi dump or something. I don't know.
Delhi dump.
I mean, you mentioned it before the cast, but the CGI for the explosion was definitely...
Yeah, so that was my big thing, because that was the most distracting thing about the explosion was the CGI was terrible.
Which was interesting because I actually kind of liked the spaceship and the sequence. Like,
no, I didn't have a problem with that at all.
Like So it's funny, like
maybe they spent all their money on that.
It could be a budgetary. It could have been a Black Panther where he spent all the money trying to make Wakanda look cool and just forgot about the action sequences that look terrible.
The scene redeemed itself.
Yeah,
that scene went from laugh out loud, stupid, to
Well, you
very
walked
serious.
on me. You walked on me watching that scene, and I was like, oh.
And you were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yep." I already knew what it was because that was the same reaction I had, and that was definitely an ugly. It almost, if they wanted it, I feel like they could have just solved it. I mean, we can go into like how we would have fixed it. Well, for one, you don't need to see that. Why not just have the explosion blow on him, like just with a fire of like a light effect on him, and then it cuts to black or something, and then you cut to a news report, and then you cut to it. Like there's a way where you can do it where you're still saving
show
money.
the flash on him, then you do the whole sequence where he's walking with the in slow motion, the weird sounds everywhere, and then him finding the bodies. You didn't need to see the train explode.
If the train explode or the wide shot of the explosion.
It didn't do what it meant to do. It didn't give me at least that feeling of like,
absolutely.
It was just kind of like I said earlier. It was jarring and it kind of took me out of it for a little bit. And you still could have.
They could have saved a lot of money.
And you could have got the emotion out of it without the like. Let's just throw in a shitty effect.
You should know better. Yeah, that's my thing. As a director, you should know better because when you're watching it, you know it looks like shit.
Right.
There's no way he saw that and didn't say, "Wow, this looks fucking amazing."
Right.
He looked at it.
But then again, it could also be a case of he
knew his audience.
He knows the audience is more forgiving than two assholes that went to film school. So
this is also true.
Yeah. So.
But I'm just saying though. If we were at a filmmakers discussion,
it was a choice. It was a choice, and we disagree with that choice vehemently. So that I'm there. Other than that, I can't really, we kind of touched on everything else. It was a solid movie. All right, so like we did with our last review of Rocky Handsome, this week we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna break the film down. I think we only did 5 categories last week.
Yeah, we only did 5.
This week we're gonna do 6.
Yep.
So editing, directing, cinematography, story,
acting, and then the oddball is
acting, and then
the variable.
Every movie's going to be a little different, but the oddball, this one is the comedic elements in this film. So let's which one do you want to start with first?
Well, let's just start in order. Let's just do cinematography first. For me personally, don't really have much to say about it because I felt like this was a fairly evenly lit movie. Nothing really stood out because nothing needed to stand out.
Right. There was not a lot of camera movement. Everything was pretty locked off.
Yeah, it was simple because I feel like any additional elements would have convoluted the directing and the story because the story was simple. So for me, I mean, everything looked exposed and lit properly, and the costume design and everything fit that. So, I don't really have any gripes, but it didn't blow me away either. Right. So, like, to me, it's average. Average to me would be a 7 for cinematography for sure.
And just to stick to my status quo, like I did last week, because I didn't notice anything and it didn't take me out or bring me in, I'm gonna give it an 8.
Yeah, because that's the sign of a good camera.
Yeah, it did the job. It didn't take me away. Like that's a thing. Like sometimes people try to do too much with the camera and it ends up hurting the film.
Because you're wondering why is this so dark? Why is this so whatever? Why you're questioning the decisions of the cinematographer / director instead of focusing on the story, which is why I leave it. To me, an average 7 is a compliment because it's not distracting, like you said. It just served the purpose of the story.
And I think to get a 10, you have to do stuff.
You have to be Roger Deakins.
Yeah, like really like.
You nail both.
Yeah,
you're doing creative shit.
Exactly.
And it's well lit.
Yep.
And you don't get distracted by it. And it's tough. It's tough to get that. It's only a few movies I feel like we've watched have had very, very good cinematography. But anyway, so you're at an 8. That's a 7. So let's get into editing. We briefly touched on editing in the review.
Yeah.
To put a story like this together is a positive. Because the fact that the story beats at the beginning did work and were paid off no matter what, no matter if I liked them or not, they still paid off, they still worked, and they still were 100% effective to balance all the plants and payoffs. Yes, that's a screenwriting thing, that's important. Yes, it's also directing, but editing is the most crucial point because you need to be able to time when are we going to cut to a close-up? When are we going to cut to this moment? When are we going to cut out of this moment? When are we going to show a reaction or whatever? And I feel like to me, to juggle all this together, it was a solid effort, and I think it was about an 8 for me personally. I do have gripes, though, with the editing, so it wasn't, like, perfect, but as a whole, looking past the little minor gripes, it was an 8 for me.
And I'm gonna give it an 8 as well, just because, just like the last review, I didn't really see anything that stood out editing wise.
I did.
That popped out to me.
And Rocky Handsome, but.
Well, no, you love the editing
Yeah.
in Rocky Handsome. That's why you give it a 10. I'm saying the same thing with Rocky Handsome. I gave it an 8. I give this one an 8 as well because it was just like the cinematography, same thing. It did the job it needed to do for me.
I'm actually going to change mine to a 7 because I feel like there's still things that could have been cut out in this movie. And that's a big gripe that I have in general with Bollywood films. But for this one, I feel like there was definitely moments where it's like, okay, do we really need to see them chasing the old man at the very beginning just so they can, like, say thank you? Do we really need that? It was cute. I get it. I get why they did it, why he said thank you, because of him they united. But did we really need that moment? I don't know.
But it was also like,
it's a character building moment.
It was a curveball too because you thought they were going to attack him.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but did we really need to be taken on that little curveball journey? Did it add up to anything? I mean, again, these are questions.
Yeah,
they're not solid.
I didn't have an issue with that, but yeah, that's fine. I mean,
so yeah, that's for me. You know, it's just yeah. Story. So we can go to story. Well, we can go about story one or two ways. I think we need to make a decision. Do we include the thematic elements within story? This category?
I mean, that's all part of it, yeah.
So then for me, the story was also an 8 because of everything it did right. You know, I didn't like the story in terms of just traditional storytelling if you were to remove the religious aspects of the film, which would be the whole movie. But I mean, just in terms of character development and stuff, I thought it was lacking.
And for me, I think, like I said, it was a little thin. You know, it didn't have too much depth to it, and that's always an issue for me. It wasn't enough to ruin the movie, obviously, but not the best. It definitely doesn't compare to Three Idiots.
Not even close.
I'm gonna give it a 5. You know,
5 for
I think
story.
Rocky Handsome I gave a 4. This one
and again, we just need to clarify.
Yeah.
If we give a 5 for story or an 8 for story, that doesn't mean we think the whole movie's bad. That's the whole point of this whole thing.
Just the technical elements of it.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
This isn't a script that I would show to a film student, to a writing student. Say,
yeah,
hey,
this is a good example.
Exactly, you know.
Pull pieces from it because there was definitely some good moments.
I think the directing. Let's do that next. I think the directing is actually what actually helped.
Yeah, let's do it. Then.
Story element wise wasn't the strongest story. Directing, I thought he did a pretty good job. You know, other than like we mentioned that there was definitely some bad decisions.
Yeah, some
not
shortcomings.
the perfectly directed film, but it was still a pretty solid performance. So I'm gonna give it a 7.
I mean, I think a lot of things could have went the way of My Name Is Khan in this movie.
Yes,
because there was a lot of absurd situations, and the fact that I didn't feel the same way. It's funny because there were certain moments where we're starting to build to like, this is going to be a moment where if it goes wrong, it's going to derail the movie.
Yeah.
And it saved itself every time.
Right.
I will save itself's not the right word, but it stayed on the proper path.
Right.
And since he did edit this, since he did direct it, it's to me that's another 8. Just because, well, I said editing was a 7, but because like you said, everything kind of paid off.
Yeah.
There was definitely moments that weren't the best, but it could have easily went the direction of My Name Is Khan if there were some bad decisions.
Right.
If there weren't enough payoffs, or plants, for the payoffs. I mean, there's just, because he also was a writer on this too. So, like, he knew the story in and out, for better or for worse, whether or not we loved the story or not, it still came together.
And he worked with what he had, even if he wrote it himself. But he
exactly.
knew what he was doing. He wrote it for himself.
So acting, we kind of already said everything in the good. I'm at a 6. Nothing blew my mind, but everyone filled their role.
I'm going to go back to 7 because I thought it was pretty solid for the most part. Like, everyone was in the pocket. You know, there was no overtly terrible performances where, like, there was nothing cringeworthy where I'm like.
And even the over the top people, like his friend that he finds because that runs him over, was a little over the top. But even he was grounded enough where you can believe that.
And it was entertaining. Once he got going, he was pretty entertaining.
Absolutely.
And I felt bad when he died.
So did I.
Yeah.
He didn't need to die.
And that was like,
shame.
You know, back to directing. That was a great bit of directing, you know, and editing in itself.
And then finally, the comedy, the X factor, the variable of this.
I thought it had a lot of solid laughs, and everything was pretty consistent. it wasn't obviously the most hilarious. I wasn't.
It wasn't I wouldn't label this as a comedy. Straight comedy.
No, it was a dramedy, I guess, because obviously there's a big social commentary, but it was definitely.
Which is the only way you can tackle.
It was definitely light up until the bomb, up until the train sequence.
Yeah, and then it kind of got.
So tonally, like I wouldn't necessarily put it drama either, I'm
at a 7.
I think it was because I'm a 7 too. Like nothing gut wrenching. Like I
but
didn't
some
have
of the
anything.
things that were happening were funny.
Yeah,
though.
there was definitely funny stuff. Like it was,
which lends
it
itself
was
to editing.
amusing. It was entertaining. It was a solid movie altogether. I enjoyed watching it. I would recommend, if you haven't watched this yet, definitely check it out.
So crunching the numbers, that puts my rating at a 7.2 and your rating at a solid 7, which is about accurate. It wasn't the best movie that we've seen Aamir Khan in. Actually, it was probably his worst that we've seen.
Right.
Mind you, we've only seen Three Idiots and Dangal, so that's not saying very much.
Not on the same scale as either of those films, for sure.
No,
for sure.
To me, those were solid films, just in general, because they nailed all the things. They nailed the story.
Yeah.
They nailed the editing. They nailed the emotional beats. They nailed the character development.
Right, and then Three Idiots had one thing going for it, had all these great like filmmaking things about it, and story. The writing was great about it, and then for me, Dangal was just like the performance was so great.
And the story too with the character,
exactly.
And then this was kind of just tried to do a lot of things and didn't nail all of them.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it was a bad movie.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all.
That's really it for me. I think that kind of sums everything up.
And that's going to do it. Thank you for watching the very first episode of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Make sure to subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Smash that like button. Let's get this review up. The more likes it gets, the more it's going to pop up in people's search engines.
Send us any suggestions or feedback you have on the show's format. Anything that maybe we should try.
All the same stuff. Let us know what you think we should change, what things you liked. We always like that kind of commentary. And then next week, be on the lookout for OMG, Oh My God. We're going to do that and probably do a little comparison between this movie PK and that one.
We were told it was similar, and I can kind of see based on the OMG trailer.
And we did the same thing with Sultan and Dangal.
Which was fun.
Yeah, it's good. Well, Daniel had a lot of fun with that. Anyways, thanks for watching. We will see you next time. Check out some of these other reviews we have down here, and we will see you tomorrow with another reaction video.